like to see. That being said, now let's move forward a little bit. We're going to also have some polling questions I should mention as well. So it's an interactive webinar. Today's webinar, as I mentioned before, is on efficient performance test automation and optimizing the Jenkins pipeline. For me, why I'm really excited about this, because it brings together what I think are two of the most important or two of the most dynamic pieces of the DevOps marketplace today. And that is Jenkins Pipeline is, in the Jenkins 2.0, we're part of the whole CloudBees Jenkins community, and test automation. I don't think there's any topic as hot as test automation today in DevOps, and Sec DevOps, and in all phases of IT. We're talking, well, all phases of business, we're talking about automation, promising to revolutionize the way we do things. Nowhere is this more, I think, prevalent than what we're seeing happening in the test automation world today. And companies like BlazeMeter are, frankly, responsible for a lot of the momentum behind that. So, marrying test automation with Jenkins Pipeline, I think it doesn't get any better, and I hope you'll agree, and I hope you'll find this an interesting conversation. I see someone already asked, will the presentation and or slides be available and recorded? So I'll say it one more time before we jump in. Yes, this is being recorded, and yes, it will be available probably within 24 hours or so of today's webinar. With that being said, let me introduce you to what I think are two great presenters for today's webinar. And like magic, it appears. So today's presenters are, first of all, from CloudBees. Happy to have Neil Hudson, Principal Solution Architect at CloudBees, and he'll be showing us some of the Jenkins Pipeline stuff today. And then joining Neil is Guy Salton. Guy is a Senior Support Engineer with BlazeMeter, and Guy's going to actually give us some demo of some new, exciting BlazeMeter functionality. Gentlemen, welcome to our webinar today.
Thank you, Alan. This is Neil Hudson, everyone.
Yep.
And Alan, thank you for that nice intro and explaining all the logistics and details. So I get the honor of going first. So basically, the reason we're here today is to talk about software, and certainly software at the speed of ideas. I think we can all appreciate, from an early age, I think we all want to get from idea to actual, making an idea stick. And so this next slide here, this really is a little survey that we did with our friends at Perforce. We basically said, all right, so out of survey of software developers, managers, and executives, how many of these organizations, right, actually started down the path to continuous delivery? And by continuous delivery, we mean the ability to basically get your ideas to software, at least software that could be put into production. So if you rank those benefits, I think it's no surprise, right, that faster time to market is likely the #1 reason that folks want to get to continuous delivery. Certainly better quality of product is second, and then I think overall, right, the last part there, reduced cost of development, I think is probably in everybody's mind. At least it's going to be in your finance department's mind,
Neil, so, this is Alan. Neil, if you don't mind, the people in the audience had asked maybe you can speak a little louder or turn your volume up.
Absolutely. I will.
Thank you.
Speak louder.
Okay.
So then with in terms of the market transformation, we also surveyed folks and asked them in reality, who's actually practicing continuous delivery? And in fact, how often do you deploy to production? So it's one thing to have always, artifacts which you could put into production. It's another to say how often you do that, right? So with that, we found 61% are actually practicing CD, actually deploying at least once per week or more. And so you can see there some of the details, in terms of how often that process goes through. So what are the requirements for continuous delivery, certainly at scale? Well, along with our folks at BlazeMeter, we like to think that Jenkins as the continuous integration, continuous delivery, that methodology, that hub, if you will, of the DevOps tool set certainly can come to fruition. The next piece is certainly knowledge and expertise. So certainly a lot of you folks that are on the call today have quite a bit of Jenkins expertise. When I'm talking with you, either at webinars like this one, or conferences, or on conversations over the GoToMeeting, I hear that time and time again that I think most folks feel pretty confident that they can get their tool chain interactive and working with all the extensibility that Jenkins can provide. And then I think probably the number one reason we have these conversations, right, is due to security and compliance. So that's a big one where people want to have audit trails. They want to basically have a paper trail so they can follow that idea all the way from code commit through to the actual artifact, and then basically be able to tell the folks that want to know where that particular bit of code came from, and also the fact that it passed security and audit and analysis, that type of thing. So scale and operations become a big part of this. Certainly, as you start to evolve your tool chain, you go from one instance to several, or you go from several projects to many. You get more and more teams involved. In fact, more teams and organizations start to find out, and of course now they want more automation in their world. They want to try and avoid the human interaction and the error proneness, right, of doing things manually. And then control and visibility here as we build our little pyramid here. Control and visibility, I think, makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of vendors and a lot of folks out there that are vying to provide sort of that dashboard capability. A lot of analytics that gets divulged from there. And then, of course, finally, you get to the enterprise continuous delivery. So there's our pyramid built essentially for, as we see the requirements for continuous delivery at scale. And then, of course, we here at CloudBees, being an enterprise Jenkins company, we look to, essentially enable you, to go about doing that. So the next slide that I want to talk about here is, and this is my final slide, and then we'll get to the demonstration, is just about where's the market today in terms of folks that were surveyed. We'd like to know where they fit. And so we have this quadrant model, if you will. And the quadrant model basically builds, so from quadrant 1 through 4, you essentially get more enterprise-wide. You essentially get more folks involved, and you certainly get, a sort of a higher satisfaction across the whole organization. So if we asked everybody, where do you feel you practice in terms of, your actual Agile ability or DevOps ability, if you will, you can respond either in the first quadrant, which actually is quadrant 0. Some folks feel like they don't actually, belong on the chart anywhere because they're just sort of getting close to some type of an Agile methodology. Perhaps they're still doing waterfall. So let me show you the results here. So some of those folks felt like they weren't even on the chart yet. And then quadrant 1, which is that team level. So it's just a small team, or perhaps just a couple projects. That certainly is somewhat like a third of the respondents. And as you build from there, quadrant 2, now you start getting into team level CD. So you actually have one particular team in the organization that's actually going with a full automated process all the way to deliverable artifacts. Quadrant 3 kind of steps back and says, well, we'd like to see the team level Agile, basically promote that across the whole enterprise, and then so that's the enterprise Agile. And then finally, the magic quadrant, if you will, is quadrant 4, right, where you have enterprise CD. So with that, that's the enterprise Jenkins, that's the CloudBees message for now. I'm going to pass the baton over to Guy. And so Guy, I'm going to make you the presenter and let you carry the rest of the show, and then I'll be back at the end to kind of tie things up.
While we're waiting for Guy's screen to come on, just a quick reminder, this webinar is being recorded. Please ask questions in the question section of the interface. And again, just a quick reminder, we are going to have a really short 30-second survey at the end that would really help BlazeMeter, CloudBees, and ourselves kind of gauge where the audience is. That being said, Guy.
Hi guys.
Okay.
Great. So hi, this is Guy from BlazeMeter. I'm a senior support engineer here in BlazeMeter, and we provide a platform, a SaaS platform for load and performance testing. And what I'm actually going to show you today is a pretty cool open source project that we developed here in-house in BlazeMeter called Taurus, but we'll get to that in a minute. So first of all, I'd like to discuss performance testing and the importance of it, and specifically continuous testing, as we call it here. So as Neil discussed before, when using CI/CD, and I'm going to focus more on the performance testing side of the continuous integration, continuous delivery methodologies, you actually shorten the time to release as you get more quality builds for every commit of or on a periodic step. And just a second, sorry. So Neil already discussed the importance of continuous delivery, and especially on SaaS companies, we get a very large increase, specifically in the last couple of years. And when discussing continuous testing, when you test over time, all the time, and it's part of an automation, you get to reduce the time to release and improve the quality of your product. So you save developers time, you save QA engineers time, and you get a more quality product. The problem is testing can be complicated, and we're here in BlazeMeter want to simplify things for you. So we developed this open source tool called Taurus. So as you can see, Taurus stands for Testing Automation Runs Smoothly, and it's basically a command line tool. That's why it's very intuitive, very easy to use, especially for developers, QA engineers, DevOps engineers, as you can simply run your performance tests from the command line, from your terminal. The cool thing about Taurus is it supports 9 different open source load testing tools, such as JMeter, Selenium, Gatling, the Grinder, Locust.io, etc. But you don't really have to learn the syntax of all of these tools, and especially for JMeter, you don't have to really get inside the JMeter GUI. You can simply write your performance test scripts using YAML or JSON formats, which are familiar to all, and very easy to use, very easy to modify. Also, as I said, Taurus is an open source tool, so you can start using it right away, and you don't need a license or anything, and it's free to use, and very easy to install as well. Using things, you just use pip install, BZT, and that's how it works. So how to solve the puzzle? So we're here in a webinar together with CloudBees, because Taurus is actually a test automation framework, and it works perfectly with Jenkins, with CI tools. So as you can see here in this diagram, within Jenkins, within your Jenkins project, you can control, for example, pass-fail criteria and stuff like that, and you can initiate your Taurus scripts from pipeline or from shell executor build step, as it's a simple command line tool. Taurus, behind the scenes, as I said before, it supports 9 different open source load testing tools. We're going to show how it runs JMeter in the webinar today. And JMeter, as you might know, is the leading open source load testing tool. We'll send the requests to your backend server for your web application or for your mobile application. So this is how it will work. So how does Taurus work? How does it look like? This is quite a simple Taurus script execution, and by looking at this, even if you're not really familiar with performance testing, you can pretty much understand what's going on here. So as you can see, we have the execution going on. We're going to run 20 concurrent users. We're going to hold these users for 5 minutes. We're going to have a ramp up of 60 seconds. This means that it's going to take 60 seconds to get from 0 concurrency to 20 concurrent users. And we're going to have a thread group that basically will run two requests. One request will have this label, Blaze Demo here. It's going to be a GET request to this URL over here, which is a demo site that we run demos on. And we'll have another request, which will be labeled Reserve. It's going to be a post request, and we're going to send it to this URL, blaze-demo/reserve.php. And we're going to add some body parameters to this post request. So this is how you create Taurus scripts, as you can see, with YAML format. And this script will actually run JMeter behind the scenes. So you don't have to get into the JMeter GUI. You can simply use this simple syntax in order to create your scenario. So let's move over to the demo and see how it works. So I created some scripts over here. A very simple script to what we just saw before. And I'm going to add some additional functionality to it, which is another module of Taurus called pass-fail. So this is also pretty straightforward. We simply add this pass-fail module, which is also in YAML format, and we're going to set a criteria. So the average response time, if it goes over 10 milliseconds, I intentionally did it so it will fail, so you can see how it works. More than 10 milliseconds for 7 seconds in a row, this is going to stop our test as failed. And if the number of hits for this specific label in our test is going to rise more than 10, for 13 seconds, we're going to continue as failed. So let's see how it works. I'm just going to bring up the terminal over here. Okay. So I already have these scripts over here, and also you can have modularity here, so you can have different YAML scripts and you can run them together. So all you have to do, I'll just enlarge this so you can see, is run bzt command and then the name of the YAML script, which is local test. And we're going to add the pass-fail criteria as well, and simply click enter. This is going to now initiate Taurus, and as I said, it's going to run JMeter behind the scene, and it will load up these very simple dashboard, which will show us metrics for our test. So we can see the labels over here, we can see the hits, the failures, etc. And if you look over here, you see that there's alert for the average response time, just went over 7 seconds and failed the test as we intended. So this is how the criteria works as well. Now I'm going to show you how it works with nicer reports using BlazeMeter. So if I simply add dash report to this command, instead of showing up these pretty simple terminal dashboards, it's gonna redirect us to the browser to BlazeMeter, and this is BlazeMeter. As I said, it's our SaaS platform for running performance, load and performance tests. And over here, we're going to have a much nicer, colorful reports to show us all the KPIs for our test. So it will look something like this, okay? And we can run it from multiple geographic locations. So over here, I run it from 2 locations, which is AWS Virginia and AWS North California. And I ran 500 concurrent users. By the way, over here, we just can see that it just started. So these tests, I'm just running from my local machine, but just using the dash report option to show these nice reports. And you can see all kinds of information about the labels. And if some of you are familiar with JMeter, this request stats report reminds of the aggregate report of JMeter. And we can also focus on a specific part of the test here in the timeline report. And and filter if you want to see only just a part of the test, like only the virtual users of a specific label. We can zoom in so we can better understand how our servers are reacting, how they're reacting to the load. So this is just a bit about Taurus and about BlazeMeter. Now, as you saw before, I just showed you as it's a command line tool, and all you have to do in order to run your test is just create your YAML scripts and then run this bzt command. It integrates very nicely and smoothly into Jenkins. So what I did here, let me show you, created a pipeline script in Jenkins. Okay. And in this pipeline script, which is in Groovy code, we're going to run two parallel stages. One of them is the performance test, which is BlazeMeter test, and there's another analysis, which is simply going to sleep for 60 seconds. But if you can look at the command we're running here. So exactly the same as we ran locally. We're going to run the bzt command. We're going to run this script called the cloudtest.yaml. I'm going to add another YAML script which is called BlazeMeter API key. This is a module of Taurus that identifies my API key, so I can use my BlazeMeter subscription to actually run large-scale tests in the cloud. And you can see that it pulls the script from my GitHub repository. So if we take a quick look at my GitHub repository, I simply uploaded my Taurus scripts right here, so over here, so we can take a look at the cloud test that I'm running here within Jenkins. And if we're using the same performance test script that I just showed you before, just see how easy it is to run it from the cloud. So all you have to do is add this location parameter, and you can add your desired location. So for example, US East -1 represents the AWS Virginia location, and US West 1 is the North California location. And it's very easy to modify and maintain these scripts as opposed to JMeter, which is in XML format, and it's not very convenient. Over here, if you want to increase the concurrency, simply change it from 1,000 to 100,000. If you want to add some more cloud instances, simply increase these numbers over here. As we just saw in this test, for example, it ran from 2 different locations, California and Virginia. So I'm using this GitHub repository, going back to my Jenkins project over here, pulling these scripts from my GitHub repository, and once I run this test, okay, let's go over here, and you can see this nice branching as I ran actually 2 parallel jobs. So let's go over to the BlazeMeter test, and I can see my shell script over here, and I can actually see all these metrics, these KPIs on runtime from my performance test from Jenkins. And if I'd like to see them within BlazeMeter, I have this link over here, which simply redirects me to BlazeMeter, so I can get this nice colorful reporting. This is all happening in real time, so I can understand what's happening to my test in real time. So if we go back to the presentation, just to summarize, we saw how to shorten the time to release, how to get more quality automation, and how to get very easy test configuration maintenance using Taurus with the DSL language, YAML format, and yes, and that's my demonstration over here. So I'll just we'll pass it over back to Neil.
I think, Neil, if you could take over. And while Neil is taking over, again, reminder, we're going to have a survey at the end if you don't mind answering a few questions. Neil, would you mind if I popped in a couple of poll questions right now to get the audience involved before I hand it over, or would you prefer to jump right on?
Yeah, please.
Great. All right, guys out in the audience, if you don't mind, just two quick questions. Are you familiar with the Taurus test automation tool? And you just saw it demonstrated, but I guess, prior to it, is anyone familiar with it? And either you are, and there's only three possible answers here. So if you can have your answers, please, we'd appreciate it. We'll close a poll up here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the survey is, I guess, to be expected for a new tool. 88% not familiar. Well, the good news is, hopefully, you will be after today's webinar. 11% familiar but have not yet tried it. So 99% of you have not really used it. And I guess that means there's lots of room to grow. Let's get to our next polling question really quickly. And that is, this one's more on Jenkins Pipeline, which I'm hoping we see a higher rate of usage. To what extent are you using Jenkins pipelines today? Have not tried it, experimenting, standalone pipeline, or pipeline with code is multi-branch, which is kind of the ultimate use there. So again, if you could answer this, and we'll close questioning, answers off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And survey says, wow, pretty even there. So we've got about almost a third of people experimenting with it, almost another third doing standalone pipeline jobs. And this is actually a pretty high number, 22%, nearly a quarter, a little more than a fifth, with pipeline with code is multi-branch. Neil, I don't know how that matches up to your experience, but that sounds pretty high.
Well, I think that's good news, Alan. Yeah, that's a good survey. That tends to match what I see in the marketplace and talking with folks. Again, all of the pipeline work that you've seen so far is available for all Jenkins users. So we're happy to see those results.
Yep. And Neil, just before I answered a few people privately on questions, the folks at BlazeMeter are aware, unfortunately, the experience a technical difficulty or two right now. They're aware and working on it. It didn't affect the demo that you saw, but the public-facing site, I think, might be experiencing difficulties there. Folks at BlazeMeter are all over it. It should be up shortly. That being said, Neil, take it away.
Thanks, Alan. And so I'm just going to wrap up the little demonstration webinar today with a few slides. So taking it, you saw in Guy's demonstration there, you saw a little bit of what we call Jenkins Pipeline, and in actuality, that's actually the Blue Ocean user experience. So that's the new user experience. That's the code name for it. The final user, actual GUI name is going to be revealed at some point soon. But that is available for Jenkins users, and you see immediately the ability that you now get the pipeline UI showing you visibly for each of the stages what's going on. You also see if you do have parallel tasks in your pipeline, so parallels, that keyword that we use to define doing things in multiple instances at the same time. You see the fan out there where it goes in the test stage. It's actually using, in this example, this screen shot here, it's actually you could envision doing a test on two different browsers, both the Edge and Firefox browser, and then of course that fans back in at the end and going through the last two stages there into production. So a little extra things about Blue Ocean. Yeah, it's definitely reshaping the user experience. For those of you who might not experienced it yet, you actually, we're kind of excited about this. You actually can create pipelines. There's actually a pipeline editor. So to keep this all UI branded, you're actually able to go in and create these pipelines now using an actual pipeline editor. It will generate all of the groovy behind the scenes that you need for that particular pipeline. And along with that, you'll actually see graphically when you start to do things like parallel tasks, you'll see the fan out capability, and you'll be able to click, in this view, you'll be able to click the plus sign in order to add more tasks along the way. So it makes it, I think, much easier for those folks that want to get GUI-centric and use it from this standpoint. Even the experienced coders out there probably could appreciate just having some, a quick, certainly it's a quick way to kind of get used to, this UI experience. And so we hope you all can take advantage of that. Along with more dashboarding capability built right into the UI, ability to see things in terms of your pipeline and things like which branch or master this particular build came from, and tagging and information like that. So lots more to come. Stay tuned to that. And so I think as you look at the enterprise solutions that CloudBees and BlazeMeter are bringing to the forefront now, there's several issues that we're looking to solve. Just to kind of wrap this up, right? There's all kinds of toolchain compatibility issues or support issues, if you want, to really put the light bulb on it, where we kind of come in and help you work with those situations. Certainly, when you talked about manageability or scaling, to multiple instances across the whole enterprise, that's just what we kind of talk about every day when we talk with customers and folks. I wanted to talk a little bit about, for CloudBees customers, just really quick, just some of the capabilities that we have rolled out in a short time frame here. So there's a CloudBees assurance program, and so the aim for this program is for customers to really remove some of the pain when it comes to Jenkins upgrades, both Jenkins core and Jenkins plugins as well. We verify certain plugins, and we're adding to that list over time. So a lot of your favorite or most commonly used Jenkins extensions should be added to that list. If they're not already, they will be very soon. And then sort of final slide here from the CloudBees perspective is that the CloudBees Network is launched earlier, I should say late last year. This is what we like to think of as a community network. This is not just for customers, although some of the things are certainly behind a customer login page. A lot of the actual documentation and knowledge base is available for everyone to kind of take a look at. So I encourage you to perhaps look at that, and if you want to get involved, feel free to give us a ring. So go.cloudbees.com is that URL. All right. Well, that basically finishes my part of the slide deck today. I want to bring up the next step slide, so those of you that are watching can kind of get the URLs, understand some of both BlazeMeter and CloudBees, where we our perspective and how you can get started in your organization.
Neil and Guy, thanks so much for the presentation here. Guys, we have some really great questions that we're going to be asking as well. And again, anyone in the audience, if you do have questions, type them in. We're going to try to get to them. Before we do, though, I wanted to address 2 or 3 people commented or in the question section. Was this webinar about BlazeMeter's SaaS, Taurus, or Jenkins Pipeline? And the answer is both, right? One of the nice things about Jenkins is it has become sort of a nexus, if you will, for so many different tools such as BlazeMeter to leverage, and not only for BlazeMeter to leverage, but for the Jenkins community to leverage all of these great tools working together. And it's part of something, I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with something called the DevOps Express, of which CA BlazeMeter is a member, as well as Jenkins, CloudBees rather. And that's really what it's about, is interoperability, common support, common interoperability, reference architectures, where we're seeing some of the leading players in the DevOps space doing it. So keep your eyes open for that, and let's jump into our questions. Our first question is for Matt, and you know what, Neil or Guy, either one of you can answer it, but it's probably a Neil question. How does continuous delivery lead to lower costs of development and better quality? The faster time to market, more satisfied customers, and competitive advantages are readily apparent. But how does it lead to lower costs of development and better code quality? Neil?
Thanks, Alan. So I think, to answer that question, that was a good question, by the way. It probably deserves its own webinar. Yeah. But I think some of the key points there are that it just kind of harps back to the automation, right, as key to kind of reducing the human footprint and need to get involved. Nobody likes to be part of the verification team, QA team, where there's a lot of human tasks that are basically more serial than parallel in nature. So we like to think that using pipeline and having things run in parallel and automate as much as possible with all the integrations like our with our friends at BlazeMeter, having those things run simultaneously or anytime a code commit is made, I think reduces the human interaction, human need. We definitely consider the cost of of all the folks on the webinar today as significant, and we want to make sure everybody's as efficient as they can be.
Got it. Neil, this next question is for you as well, and it goes kind of into the nitty-gritty of your early slides. You mentioned that 11% of enterprise CD, relating back to the chart, but the chart said 61% were practicing CD. Maybe Elizabeth misunderstood. 61% seemed kind of high. Just want to clarify your numbers there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for pointing that out. So in the slides themselves, and I can actually run those again here. So there was this slide that was talking about the quadrant model, and in terms of responses, this survey showed that fully 11% are actually practicing enterprise CD, where they actually have the entire enterprise delivering artifacts ready for production on an automated, consistent measure. And then referring back to the other contrast, in this particular survey, we found that 61% were practicing CD, and they're deploying, once per week or more. So that could be the fact that they have an automation CD pipeline, but it could just be at a team level. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the entire enterprise working that. And then further, it's quantifying it by at least once per week or more. Certainly, if you're considering deploying our CD capabilities, you might think that it would be more frequent than that. So different surveys, but it's still a good question. I'm glad we had a chance to clarify that.
Yep, and really it goes to the definition of enterprise CD, which is the sort of all-in model. Next question is for Guy, though. Guy, which testing tools can be connected to Taurus?
Hi there. So Taurus, as I said, supports 9 different open source load and functional testing tools. So we have JMeter, we have Selenium, we have Gatling, we have Grinder, we have Locust, we have pbench, we have Sage, we have Apache Benchmark, we have Tsung, and maybe even more to go, but these are like the leading ones and the most used ones, especially JMeter, Selenium, and Gatling, I think, are now the leading ones, but we support the rest as well, as I said. And just to elaborate a bit, when I showed you the scripts that I ran, I didn't specify an executor. I just want to show you if I'll share my screen here, for example. Or doesn't matter. If you remember the YAML scripts that I created, if you want to use, oh, okay, thanks for that. So JMeter is the default executor. So once I simply create a YAML execution file over here, and I don't specify any executor, by default it will run JMeter behind the scenes, and it will create an artifacts directory with the JMX file. So it will actually create my JMeter scripts from this simple execution YAML file. If I want to run the same script but with Gatling, I can simply add another parameter here called executor and set it to be Gatling. By doing this, Taurus will actually generate a Scala script to run Gatling, and it will run Gatling behind the scenes, and in the artifacts directory to save all the logs of Gatling. If I want to do the same with Selenium, simply set the executor to Selenium. So it's that easy. And very important to add, if you guys already have some configured scripts, or let's say you're already using JMeter, or you're already using Selenium, and you have some Python or JavaScripts for Selenium, and you want to keep using them, that's also okay. You can, instead of specifying the whole execution within the YAML script, you can also add a path to your Python or JavaScript or Scala script for Gatling, and then keep using your already configured scripts, but add some modifications or add some additional configurations within the YAML. This way it's very easy to maintain, very easy to modify. You can keep using the tools that you're using, and you can make them more scalable, as with Taurus you can run your performance scripts using the BlazeMeter cloud. So you can run your already defined scripts for hundreds of thousands or even 1 million concurrent users all at once using the BlazeMeter cloud scalability, and you also get the nice colorful reporting that I showed you before. So
great. Guy, don't go off screen, because this next one I think is a little deep in the weeds that you're going to need to answer. Where do I, Mahesh asks, where do I define whether a test is a pass or a fail for a performance test? I may have several parameters like response time SLA or error rate or HPS or a combination of these, of all of these. How do I define whether it's a pass or fail?
Okay, so great question. If you see my screen right now, and actually I want to show you the other options as well. So I'll just open up, this is the Get Taurus website, by the way. And in the demonstration that I did, I used, and here you can see all of the options, but for example, AVG-RT is for the average response time. So let's say you want to set a criteria so to be set, so if the average response time goes over, let's say 100 milliseconds for 10 seconds, and then after the comma you can decide what will happen if this criteria is met. So you can decide if you want to stop the test as failed, or you want to continue but mark it as failed. So you have different options over here. And you don't have to use response time. You can use the latency, you can use the connect time, you can use the standard deviation for the full response time, you can use the error rate or the success responses. So you have all these options over here. You can also add the custom message for the criteria. So when you have look in the logs, you can also get this message in Jenkins. So from your Jenkins project, you'll be able to see a customized message such as the test failed because it passes past the maximum latency that we set, or something like that. So it's very easy to configure. You can have it all within the same YAML script together with the execution, or what we always recommend is modularity. So you can set the pass-fail configuration in one YAML script, you can set the execution in a different YAML script, and then you can simply run the BZT command with multiple YAML scripts, and once you do that, it will merge them all into one script and apply all these additional configurations and modules.
Okay, next, can Taurus replace I think I know the answer. Can Taurus replace JMeter? If not, what does JMeter do that Taurus can't?
Okay, that's also a great question. I think the answer is no. The answer is I don't think it's no, because JMeter has a very vast amount of functionality. So currently, Taurus, if you want to define a performance test using this nice YAML format over here, you can specify HTTP requests, as you saw here, which is the most basic request that you can sampler that you can set in JMeter. You can also set some request headers, and you can set some regular expression extractors and stuff like that. But JMeter has some more complex configuration that is still not possible to do only with a YAML script. So it doesn't replace it, but they work great together. Because the thing is, if you look, you can still see my screen, right? If I'll just open JMeter, for example, to show you an example. So let's see. Okay, so we also have, Taurus also provides a converter called the JMX, JMX to YAML converter. So we can take all your JMX files and convert them into YAML. So you can start using those. But the thing is that it still doesn't replace it completely, as if you, especially if we are talking about CSM support. So, for example, you saw that I uploaded my YAML scripts into GitHub, and it was very easy for me to make modifications in my YAML script because it's simple YAML format, and I simply have parameters like concurrency, like hold for. I simply change the numbers as I please, and that's it. But if we look at a more complex JMeter script, so for example, let's look at this one. Okay. So it has some more configuration. It's some bin shell processors. It's some such regular expressions, and so on. If we want to control and modify this script with the CSM, so which means we'll have to open it in the XML format of it. It looks terrible. So it's really hard to maintain. It will look, this JMeter script will look like this. Okay, like this. So just compare this nice YAML script to this terrible XML format, and this is a real pain. This is a real pain to modify. This is a real pain to maintain. So that's the beauty of Taurus. So if you have a really complex JMeter script, keep it, and then use Taurus just for maintenance, use it for modifications, use it for automation with CI tools, but it still doesn't replace the complex, very complex script of JMeter, but it enhanced them.
Okay. One more for you, Guy. Can we include load runner instead of JMeter? Hey.
That's also a great question. So actually, load runner, as you know, is not open source. It's pretty much the opposite. We're here in BlazeMeter. We're more of a open source SaaS company over here, and as you saw, we support many different open source load testing tools. We don't support load runner. However, we do have working on a converter from load runner scripts to JMeter. We actually had some really nice blog posts and webinars about the advantages of using JMeter and open source load testing tools comparing to load runner. So you can go to our website and check them out. So you can see some nice comparison and see the differences. But to answer the question, no, we don't support load runner. You can't run load runner with Taurus.
Great. Okay. There's another one for you guys. Sorry to put you on double time here. If it can the response times from the APM tool be used for the success-fail criteria?
Interesting question. So, first of all, it's a good question about APM because APM is very, very important, and especially for performance tests. So let me just show you. If we go here to the BlazeMeter platform, right, and I just go to some tests. Let's just create a new JMeter test, for example. This is how it looks like. So over here you can upload your JMeter script. You can override some of the configuration. And as you can see here in the additional features, we support many APM tools such as Dynatrace APM, such as CA APM, such as New Relic APM, such as CloudWatch. Now we have nice integrations with these APM tools. So for example, CloudWatch, if you have a CloudWatch profile and you're using it to monitor your servers, your application servers, once you use this nice integration here with BlazeMeter and you run your performance test with BlazeMeter, you will actually get these metrics inside the BlazeMeter report. So you will be able to monitor both the load engine and your target server together. You will get both reports together here in BlazeMeter. Regarding the test fail criteria, you can set them here. These apply only to the test itself. So if you set here a KPI, for example, for response time, and you want to see the average response time, this will be the average response time of your target server, but it will be the response time as it will be responding to the requests that the load engine is sending. So these are the interesting test fail criteria. These are the interesting thing that you want to measure. So we do have an integration with APM. You can use both reports together. You can use set your test fail criteria. But then this is how it works. I hope I answered the question.
I think you did. Here, one more for you, Guy. Instead of manually invoking the Taurus script from CloudBees, the command line, I assume the script can be invoked as part of an automated build verification process, and that's from Shamim.
Obviously, and great question. So once you have your Jenkins project here configured, it can be pipeline, it can be just the classic Jenkins project. As you already saw, I integrated my GitHub repository over here. I have all my scripts and my data files in my GitHub repository, and I can simply configure the Jenkins project to build when a change is pushed to GitHub. And then once I make a change here, okay, and I change one of the parameters or whatever, I can just change the test name, or I can change the concurrency, or I can change the number of cloud instances that will actually run my test. I can configure it so every change here in GitHub will trigger my Jenkins project, and then I will have another build per commit. So this will be fully automated. It's very easy to configure. I actually wrote a blog post about this myself, so I can share it with you if you want.
Sure. It's on GitHub?
Let's see. Yes. Oh, I guess it's now the BlazeMeter marketing site is down currently. Our R&D team is working on fixing that, but you can just.
You know what? We'll put it up, Guy. When we put up the note from this, we'll try to.
Okay, no problem. But regarding the question, of course, it's possible, and you will see how to in the blog post.
Okay. We only have time for a few more questions. We have so many more here, though. We will get them to Guy, and if I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, I apologize, to get our answers in here for everyone. Neil, I'm going to let you have one question here, though, and that was that, obviously in our demo we were using Blue Ocean, and the question is CloudBees considering Blue Ocean ready for prime time yet at this point, or if not, when?
That's a great question. So yes, Blue Ocean, the actual plugin is available in the Jenkins-ci.org site. So it is open source. You only need to install the one Blue Ocean plugin, and all the dependencies will come with it. It is still considered a beta project. We are working on that diligently. I expect, and again, I'm in sales, so I'm allowed to say this, but I expect Blue Ocean to be available to the general public, as a full capable plugin in the next month or so. So it's not going to be very long, but it is in beta, and I encourage you to take a look at it now.
Good. Guys, let me wrap things up here. We do have many, many questions that were unanswered. We will get them to Neil and Guy. We will try to get you answers to your questions. We value your time, your questions, and that's why we do these webinars. Secondly, I know the BlazeMeter marketing site was down. We apologize. It appears actually that the Amazon S3 is having a problem. I don't know if BlazeMeter uses Amazon, but might have something to do with that.
Yes, we do. It's related.
Okay, so that might be our issue right there. But we will try to get to the rest of these questions. It bugs me that we can't. I appreciate the questions. But Guy and Neil, what a fantastic webinar today. I think our audience really learned a lot, and you certainly stimulated them to start thinking about Taurus and Jenkins pipelines as we see from the volume of questions. Maybe we'll have you both on again soon and we can do a part 2 to this thing. But again, thanks very much to both of you. Thanks to BlazeMeter, CA BlazeMeter, for sponsoring today's webinar. Thanks to CloudBees for participating. Most of all, thanks to the 3,000 some odd number of you folks who registered for today's webinar. Again, please stay on. We are going to do a really short survey. I need you to help with that. Number 2, we're not going to mail you the recording. We're going to mail you a link to the recording, and that'll hopefully be in the next 24 hours or so. So with that said, let me turn things over to get the survey up here. And this is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com, and we hope to see you soon on another DevOps.com webinar. Jules in the back end, can we get our survey up? Yes? Okay, it'll come up when the webinar ends, so I think we're ready then. Again, this is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com, everyone. Your webinar will be coming up, and thanks. Have a great day.